Going from worst to first, we're starting off with the New York Jets. The Jets' offense was a nightmare last season, and I expect that to continue. They downgraded at QB to a quarterback in Justin Fields that can't throw or read the field. Brees Hall regressed last season and will probably get overtaken by Braylon Allen. Garrett Wilson is really the only good weapon on this offense, and the O-line should be pretty good this season, but that's really the only bright side. At 31, I got the Browns. They have one of the strangest quarterbacks rooms we've ever seen, and it appears Flacco will be the week one starter, who at this point in his career constantly slings the ball downfield, which will result in points but also a lot of turnovers. The O-line is aging with the exception of DeJuan Jones, who really struggled last season, so I don't expect much out of the run game unless Judkins really can shine his rookie year. And the receiving core looks pretty weak with Jerry Jeudy and tight end David Njoku really being the only pieces there. I expect the Browns offense to be a complete dumpster fire again. At 30, I got the Saints. It's still uncertain whether Shuck or Rattler will start, but it looks like it'll be Shuck. But either way, the QB situation will still be a problem. Kamara is still a solid running back, and Olave is a 1,000-plus-yard receiver when healthy. But outside of that, there isn't much weapon-wise. The O-line isn't too great, but there is optimism for young tackles Talise Fuaga and Kelvin Banks, who were first-round picks back-to-back years. 29, I got the Titans. The Titans did get a QB upgrade this offseason by drafting Cam Ward, but that's pretty much it. I'm personally not that high on Ward, so I don't think it'll drastically improve the offense. And I'm not sure who Ward is even going to throw to besides Calvin Ridley, unless rookies Alec Aomenor and Shamari DK step up. The O-line and run game will be fine. At 28, I got the Steelers. The Steelers' offense won't be much different this season, especially with Tomlin as the head coach. They should have a slight upgrade at QB with Rodgers. Jaylen Warren was great as a running back too last season, but I'm not sure how he'll be as a true number one, getting more carries. But that also depends on how Caleb Johnson does, and I'll assume that they'll end up splitting carries. They did upgrade at wide receiver 1, trading for DK Metcalf, and we'll see Calvin Austin with an increased role in the offense. But it's up in the air who will step up to be the wide receiver 3. They might have the best tight end group in the league, adding Jonnu Smith, who finished with nearly 900 yards and 8 touchdowns last season, along with Freiermuth and Darnell Washington. The success of the O-line will come down to the two young tackles, Troy Fautanu and Broderick Jones. Jones has looked horrible the past few seasons, but is back to his natural position at left tackle, and Fautanu is coming off an injury that made him unable to play his rookie season. The Giants by far have the most fun quarterback room in the league, and it looks like Russ will be the week one starter. Even though he's not what he used to be, he's still serviceable, but we'll probably see Jackson Dart at some point, who had a great preseason. They have a solid running back core with Tyrone Tracy, Singletary, and Cam Scadaboo, but they will be running behind a pretty bad O-line again. Malik Neighbors already looks like a star, and Wan'Dale Robinson quietly had a good season where he nearly had 100 catches. At 26, I have the Colts. Daniel Jones is going to be the starter week one, and they actually have some pretty solid weapons with Jonathan Taylor in the backfield and a quietly good wide receiver core with Pittman, Downs, and Pierce, along with the first-round pick, Tyler Warren, who's extremely versatile and a good O-line, but I can't rank them any higher because of the QB. At 25, I have the Panthers. Bryce Young had a great second half of the season and showed why he was a number one overall pick, but there's definitely some uncertainty if he can pick up where he left off. Chuba Hubbard has emerged as a very good running back and has a solid O-line in front of him. They also upgraded their receiving core, hopefully finding their number one in Ted McMillan, and this could be a potential breakout year for Xavier Leggett. At 24, I have the Raiders. They upgraded a QB trading for Geno Smith, but he plays pretty carelessly and will put up more points but also turn the ball over a lot. The run game will be drastically improved with the selection of Ashton Jenney, who will probably rush for at least 1,000 yards if healthy, even if the O-line is a little below average. Jacoby Myers is an under-the-radar receiver who was pretty good last season and finished with 0 drops. They also used their second and fourth round picks on Jack Bech and Deontay Thornton to improve the receiving core. At 23 of the Patriots, personally I'm very high on Drake May and think he has the potential to be an elite quarterback. He showed flashes last year with a horde supporting cast. In the second round, they drafted Travion Henderson, who I think will easily overtake Ramondre Stevenson as running back one and be one of the best rookie running backs. They did improve their receiving core, adding Stephon Diggs and third round pick Kyle Williams, and have Demario Douglas to round out the starters along with other receivers that have for solid depth. They also have a solid tight end Hunter Henry, who quietly had a good season last year. The O-line won't be very good, but it can't really be worse than last year, and they did add a few guys. 22, I got Jacksonville. We're still waiting on Trevor Lawrence to take that next step. They have a deep running back room, and it appears Tank Bigsby will take over as running back one since ETN was really bad last year, and we could potentially see rookies Bishal Tuden and LaQuint Allen get some action in the backfield. Brian Thomas Jr. had an amazing rookie season and established himself as a top 10 receiver, and they traded up to take Travis Hunter, making for a young and exciting receiving core, despite not having much outside of those two, and the O-line is below average. Sam Darnold seemed to come down to earth towards the end of last season, so it'll be interesting to see how it does in Seattle, especially since their O-line was horrible last year and he crumbled when he faced pressure. They have a decent running back duo with Walker and Charbonnet. JSN took a huge leap last season after an okay rookie year and looks like a true number one. They also grabbed Cooper Kupp, who will be reliable too, and fifth round pick Torrey Horton has looked pretty good so far. Similar to Trevor, Kyler Murray's been in QB purgatory where he's a good quarterback but still hasn't taken that next step everyone's been waiting for. James Conner has quietly been pretty good for the Cardinals. Marvin Harrison had a good rookie year, and it'll be interesting to see if he can take the next step into being an elite receiver. Trey McBride is also a really good tight end and finished fourth in receptions, despite only finding the end zone twice, and Michael Wilson's solid too. The Texans' offense regressed last season. Stroud is still a good QB, but he wasn't the elite QB we saw his rookie season. But he also has what might be the worst O-line in football, which hurt his production. Joe Mixon has fit into Houston well, and they signed Nick Chubb, who looks pretty washed, but maybe he can potentially complement Mixon. Nico Collins is a top 10 receiver, and they drafted two rookies out of Iowa State, Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll. Nix had a great rookie season, and it looks like he might be the future in Denver. They improved the backfield by signing J.K. Dobbins and drafting R.J. Harvey in the second round. Receiving core is young outside of Sutton, with Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin, and Pat Brown, who might actually get tight end production this year because they signed Evan Ingram, and they also have one of the best O-line. Dak struggled last season, but I still believe he can be a very good quarterback. CeeDee Lamb is also one of the best receivers in the league, and they traded for George Pickens, which will help the receiving core out a little. The only problem is they might have the worst run game in the NFL, so they'll have to completely rely on the passing game. Success of the Vikings offense will come down to how J.J. McCarthy plays. They were surprisingly dominant last season, even with Sam Darnold, who was able to shine. They have a top 10 O-line which helps the run game, along with a solid backfield with Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. And then the receiving core is very good with Jefferson, Addison, and Hawkinson, but because of McCarthy, I can't rank them any higher. At 15, I got the Bears. The Bears' offense was very disappointing last season, and Caleb Williams had a pretty rough rookie season despite high expectations. But this year there are no excuses, with them bringing in a new head coach, Ben Johnson, who was an offensive mastermind in Detroit. They significantly upgraded the O-line and have a very good receiving core along with two good tight ends. The run game won't be very good, but I don't really see how the Bears' offense is incompetent unless Caleb Williams really struggles. 49ers' offense really struggled last season. Purdy was alright, but did look worse than the year prior, but their offense was also derailed with injuries, with McCaffrey and Ayuk. Ayuk is going to miss a few weeks this year, and who knows if McCaffrey can actually stay healthy, but they do have solid depth at running back. Jawan Jennings really broke out last year, and Kittle is still a top 3 tight end with solid O-line play. It'll be interesting to see whether they struggle again or can return to the Super Bowl caliber offense. At 13, I got Miami. Tua's easily the most inconsistent and bipolar quarterback in the league, and he's also behind a pretty bad O-line. Waddle and Hill both had down years last year, but they're still a good wide receiver duo. And even with a bad O-line, the run game should be fine with Devon Achane, who's also a huge threat in the receiving game. At 12, I have the Falcons. Michael Penix looked very solid in a very small sample size last season. The run game will be dominant with one of the best running backs in the league, Bijan Robinson, and a top 10 O-line. And the receiving core looks pretty good with London and Mooney, and maybe it'll be Kyle Pitts' year. Just outside of the top 10, I have the Packers. Jordan Love is a borderline top 10 quarterback in the league. Josh Jacobs had a great first year with the Packers, and the receiving core is solid depth, but no established number one, which is what they hope to solve in drafting Matthew Golden. Rounding out the top 10 is the Chargers. Justin Herbert is still one of the best quarterbacks in the league despite the recent hate he has been getting. They also strengthened the backfield by drafting Omarion Hampton and signing Najee Harris. Lev McConkey had an amazing rookie season, and they brought back veteran Keenan Allen for the receiving core. And the O-line took a huge hit with Rashawn Slater out for the season, but they still should be an above-average unit. We saw Mahomes struggle a little bit in the regular season, but the playoffs become a different story, and he's still a top 3 quarterback as long as the playoff success continues. Pacheco didn't really look the same after returning from his injury, so they may not have a true number one back, but they do have a young and up-and-coming receiving duo in Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy, and Kelsey is still pretty good. The success of the O-line will be dependent on tackle play from Simmons and Jawan Taylor. Jaden Daniels had an unreal rookie season, leading the Commanders all the way to the NFC Championship, and is already one of the best QBs in the league. The run game is going to be very weak with Austin Eckler as the current running back one. They just extended Daniels' sidekick Terry McLaurin, and they also brought in Deebo Samuel, who even though he's not what he used to be, is still pretty solid. And veteran tight end Zach Ertz provided some solid production last year. Despite being 37, Matthew Stafford is still a very good QB, and now has Devontae Adams to throw to along with star wide receiver Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell. The run game is pretty good too with Kyron Williams, who's a borderline top 10 back, and they have an average O-line unit. Barely missing out on the top 5 is the Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield has completely revived his career with Tampa, finishing top 3 in yards and touchdowns last season, but it also comes with nearly a pick a game. Bucky Irving proved to be one of the biggest steals in the draft last year. They also have a really good receiving core, but Jalen McMillan and Chris Godwin will miss some time. But they still have Mike Evans and drafted Emeka Egbuka, who I think will have a huge season and lead all rookies in receiving yards, and they have one of the best O-lines when Tristan Wirfs will return. The Lions get the top 5 started. The Lions' offense is due for a slight regression with the loss of O.C. Ben Johnson and Frank Ragnow and Kevin Zeitler on the O-line. Jared Goff has established himself as a top 10 quarterback and has a really good receiving core with Amon-Ra, Jameson Williams, and preseason rookie standout Isaac Teslia, and they have the best running back duo in the league. At 4, I have the Bengals. Joe Burrow led the league in passing yards and touchdowns and is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Chase Brown broke out last season and is the back of the future for Cincinnati. The Bengals have, in my opinion, the best receiver in the league, Jamar Chase, along with T. Higgins, to make the best wide receiver duo in the league. The difference between them being in the top 3 is the O-line, because the Bengals O-line is one of the worst in football. We'll be getting the top 3 started with Philly. The Eagles had the best O-line in football last season, which allowed them to be so dominant and helped Saquon emerge as the best running back in the NFL. Jalen Hurts really stepped it up towards the end of last season, including the playoffs, even though he was shaky at times and holding the Eagles' offense back earlier in the season. They also have an elite wide receiver duo with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, along with tight end Dallas Goedert. At 2, I have Buffalo. As long as the Bills have Josh Allen, the offense will be extremely dominant. The run game will also be very good with James Cook and 2 solid backs behind them, along with one of the best O-lines in the league. At receiver, they don't really have much besides Khalil Shakir, but Allen will find someone to throw to. The Ravens' offense has been and will continue to be unstoppable at least up until the postseason. Lamar Jackson is the best quarterback in the league, and the run game is elite with Derrick Henry, and Justice Hill and Keaton Mitchell are pretty solid too. The receiving core might not stick out, but Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman are good receivers, along with D Hop, who still has some in the tank, and with potentially the best tight end duo in the league, and they have one of the better O lines. Thanks for watching.